Just pause there. Okay, so welcome everyone to this webinar focused on our criminal justice LLM. I've got my colleague Tom here, who will allow to introduce himself in just a moment. But just before we start, to introduce myself, my name is Charlotte Burton. I'm the marketing manager for the School of Law here at Queen Mary. So I provide opportunities for you to find out more about studying with us. And today's session is obviously all about criminal justice. But if you do have any questions as we go along the session, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A function to ask questions. I will answer anything very specific as we go along, but we will have time at the end for question and answer. So please feel free to ask any questions you might have. Please do not worry if I don't answer your question straight away. It might be that I'm saving it for the end for us to answer, for everyone to hear the answer to. So please don't worry if I don't get back to you straight away. We've got the session for an hour, so up to 1 o'clock here UK time. So please feel free to use the time that you have. Obviously, if we finish a bit short, we'll finish it early and you can have a little bit of time back in your lunch break or wherever you are in the world, what time it might be for you. So without further ado, Tom, I will pass over to you to introduce yourself and go ahead with our presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Charlotte. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to students or prospective students before they get before they get started at Queen Mary. My name is Dr. Thomas McManus. I'm the Program Director for the Criminal Justice LLM. And I teach on the LLM. I teach state crime. I also teach corporate violence, and I teach climate justice. So 15 credit modules, so 3 half modules on the LLM, which taken together I think of as kind of crimes of the powerful modules. So they take a criminological legal approach. I am a lawyer, Solicitor of Ireland, New York attorney, but my background in criminal justice is researching and teaching on a range of criminal justice topics, from the death penalty to corporate crime to genocide and other international criminal law offenses. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Queen Mary and the program and what you can expect. And then I want to leave as much time as we need for any questions at all that you might have about Queen Mary, London, the program, criminal justice in general that we can deal with. We can discuss all of that. And feel free to pop questions in the chat as we go along. And as Charlotte said, she'll ask any of them if necessary, or otherwise we'll keep them to the end for our discussion bit. So let me share my slideshow with you. Just a quick slideshow to run through before we discuss anything. Charlotte, do I need something to do this? Do I need more access or something?
Have you not got the share screen at the bottom?
Oh yeah, the big green button that is very.
There we go. Thought I'd given you the wrong access then.
No, you've given it. Okay, so how does that look?
You're not on full screen at the moment. You're slightly narrow.
That look any better?
No.
Ah, okay.
We're kind of on half a screen.
How about that?
No, it's still not changed. Oh, here we go. Yeah, perfect.
That look okay?
Display. Yeah, brilliant.
Great. Okay. So let me see, where am I? So to begin, we have 2 campuses. Queen Mary is unusual for a London university in that we have London campuses, places that you can actually walk around and have different buildings of the same place. A lot of the other major universities in London don't actually have a campus, so that is something to keep in mind. For LLM, you're based mostly in Lincoln's Inn Fields, which is in the heart of legal London. It's in Lincoln's Inn Fields is actually one of the inns of court. where one of the four Inns of Court, where the barristers live, and you're also very close to the Royal Courts of Justice, and not far from the famous Old Bailey, the Central Criminal Court too. Chancery Lane and the Law Society are also just around the corner, and lots of law firms and barristers' chambers also nearby. And the reason law firms tend to be in that area is inside the city of London, that 1 square kilometre, there actually isn't a limit on the fees that lawyers can charge. And that's why you'll find them inside that specific area. So they're all squashed into 1 square mile. Then I'm based in the Mile End campus, and some of the more criminological or human rights approached modules you might end up being taught out on Mile End campus. It's a short ride on the tube from the central line from Holborn to Mile End is only a few stops. And so students tend to move between the two campuses as they see fit. Some of the rankings, which I'll just put up and we can have a look at them. We're 7th in the UK by QS subject rankings for law, 11th in the UK on the Guardian's league table, 15th for research in the REF, that's the Research Excellence Framework 2021. That's a framework that is kind of tested every 3 or 4 years to see how universities are doing with their teaching and their research. 32nd in the world, 50th in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings by subject, and we have lots of links with the legal industry. And that's one of the reasons we have that campus in Lincoln's Inn Fields, so that we are inside legal London, so that we have complete access to everything around us, whether it's courts, lawyers, and so that means that there are always lots of legal events going on, lectures and talks and open nights and all that kind of thing. Our faculty are experts from around the world, and we are very strong on our fact that our teaching is research-led, our community is research-led. It's a research-led organization. So everyone that's teaching you is at the cutting edge of research, of what they're doing. So when I teach genocide, I'm teaching from experience of actual field work in the field, talking to people who have committed genocide, but also talking to victims of genocide and pulling together a picture of how it happens and why it happens. And then I bring that into the classroom, and I actually often use students as a way of testing theories or testing ideas, because I find, especially with my LLM students, that people come from all over the world. They have lots of different levels of experience, lots of different life experience, and it's a great way to test out the things we research. So research-led teaching is to teach students, but also is a way for the lecturers to get taught by those students who have a really wide background of experience. And we have some of the top people in the world doing the teacher. For example, Professor Niamh Gordon, Professor Penny Green, Professor Fitzmaurice on Law of the Sea is a world expert, and lots of others. It's really, I love being part of that team. The LLM program, it's 180 credits over 1 or 2 years, 2 if you're doing it part-time. There are specialist modules, so that they're the modules for your program that you choose. There's an optional dissertation of 30 credits. And then there's modules outside the specialism which you can pull in to kind of design your LLM as you see fit. The dissertation is a great way of getting your teeth into an issue that you want to research, and maybe it's something that after the LLM you can think about moving on with a bigger project. The dissertation is a great way to start something like that. And it can be research-based. You know, you can actually interview people or data collect as long as you go through the ethics approval at the university. And so, as I say, it's an excellent way to really get into a topic or a phenomenon or a subject in quite serious depth. And you're assigned a supervisor with expertise on that to help you all the way through with boring stuff like methodology and ethics applications and literature reviews to help you to get through dissertation. There are over 200 modules to choose from, which is a huge number, which just speaks to the large size of the LLM teaching capacity that we have. And it ranges all the way from tax to corporate violence, something like I would do. And so you have your compulsory modules, in your elective, but then you can also, your compulsory modules in your program, but you can also have elective modules that you want to take on as well that you think based on where you're going in your career or just clearly or based on your interests. I'm a big proponent of just studying because it is a way of enhancing your own knowledge of the world. But also you can be strategic in being career-faced and doing things you're interested in at the same time. It's great to have that elective side of it. There's more here on the dissertation. If you like writing and like researching, then I think this is a really great way. And you can pick a topic that is genuinely something that a topic that you've been thinking about for a while and you want to look at. It's a way of starting out to be an expert in this area. And I still look back to my own dissertation for my own LLM to continue the projects that I started all that time ago. The criminal justice LLM, it's obviously the best program, but that's me just being biased. It's obviously the most interesting. Criminal justice is something that on an international level is starting to link together more than it ever has before, whether that's with extraterritorial laws that have come in place, or if we're talking about international law itself, the way it's been developing. And also there are lots of ongoing, especially from an international point of view, crimes in the world, and you will deal with real life situations in class as well. And because criminal justice is something that really brings you to the heart of humanity, it can be really challenging at times. Some of the stuff that you have to study can be quite harrowing because of the subject matter. But it's also very fulfilling because it helps us to understand really what's going on in the world and how we can somehow control the harm and the suffering that's going on. And that's really at the core of criminal justice, of protecting people from harm and finding ways of understanding why crimes take place, and then creating a criminal justice system that has the ability to deal with that. It's very wide. You can have criminal justice which looks specifically at street crime, or you can have something that looks at climate breakdown. I mean, it's quite a huge kind of area, and it involves human rights. It involves extraterritorial laws. I say it involves law from multiple jurisdictions, and it involves supernatural law that sits on top of states. The kinds of subjects we're talking about on this slide are terrorism, human rights, migration, international crime, cybercrime, corporate violence, state crime, economic crime, and the list goes on. There are, as I say, over 200 modules available. And not all available, as you can see in brackets, depending on staffing. If a member of staff is gone off on research leave or gone off on sabbatical, we don't wheel someone else in to teach that module. We really are focused on having the expert doing the teaching. And if one or two experts happen to be not around in any particular year, then unfortunately their modules won't run. But most of them will, of course, run because most of us are here. And the other thing that we have at Queen Mary is some really active research centers. We have the International State Crime Initiative. I'm currently the director of that myself. And that looks at Um, Government violence, government corruption, anything that involves human suffering at the hands of governments is something that the International State Crime Initiative can look at. We've done a lot of work recently on Israel-Gaza, and before that, we have looked at the Rohingya issue in Rakhine State. And really, the International State Crime Initiative is the base of all state crime academics from around the world. It's a hub we use. We have a journal, we have edited volumes of books, and so all the research feeds through Queen Mary through that organization. So I'm really proud to be the director of that at the moment. We also have the new Center for Climate Crime and Climate Justice, which is set up by Professor Dave White. Anyone who has read anything on corporate crime or climate crime will know that name from academia. And along with Dr. Angela Sherwood, they are really leading the way with conferences that you're all very welcome to attend, internships, and ways to get involved, research projects and things that, and really one of our resources is the LLM student body. And so we dip in and try and take out anyone who is talented and willing to get involved wherever we can. Similarly, with the Centre for Criminal Justice, you'll all automatically become members of the CJC, and we have events throughout the year that try to bring experts in the field, whether they're lawyers, NGOs, or otherwise, to come and talk to us, or we go to them. For instance, this year we went to the Pirate Monitoring Station, which is actually in London at the moment. Where we had a really interesting lecture where they sat and taught us how to break into a container on a ship. I'm not sure why they taught us how to do that, but it was really interesting to find out what their issues were with criminal justice on transnational shipping. We also have the Centre for Law, Democracy and Society, very active society with loads of events and research. Also Borders, and the Institute for Regulation and Ethics, and there are a couple of others that I haven't even mentioned. So there's lots going on, led by our experts here in the school, and really active. You can have a look at our websites to see the web pages for all of these centres to see what they're up to. So even if you don't get involved with them, it's worth doing research on what they're doing and events they have and things. There's some useful links there. I think you'll probably get a copy of these slides, so you'll be able to click on them afterwards. And they are different ways of researching about whether either whether you're going to choose Queen Mary to come to, or researching about ways of how you hit the ground running when you arrive to make sure that you get the full value out of your year that you're here. And then some context for the school. The directors of the LLM program are Professor Flanagan and Dr. Pereira. And you can see their email addresses there. And then there's also your point of contact for any issues is the School of Law Postgraduate Law Office, pglaw-inquiries@qmu.ac.uk. They can sometimes be busy, so give them a day or two to get back to you, but they will help you out if and when they can. And I'll just add my own email address there in case you think of any questions afterwards that you want to ask me. Please feel free to email me. And that's all really I have to say. I know that students who come enjoy very much Queen Mary and enjoy the criminal justice program in particular. Again, I'm biased, so I'm telling you that. I love working here because of the level of expertise and professionalism of the staff, but also the way that the staff and the students look after each other and interact with each other. I feel it's a really welcoming place, and that's what makes it for me here. Great.
Thank you,
That's
Tom.
all really I have to say. Yeah, are there any questions or comments or anything we need to discuss?
Well, not so far, but I'm sure they'll start coming. But I was going to ask you, just out of interest, how long have you worked at Queen Mary for?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to get my CV. It must
Long
be
time.
8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
If not more, maybe 10 now, actually.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're here, basically.
Yeah. Yes, I know that for sure as well. Goes by so very quickly.
Yeah.
But what do I imagine you do keep in touch with some of the alumni of the program. What sort of things do the students go on to do after they've finished a criminal justice LLM?
Yeah, a wide range of people. So we have a lot of people who are on, say, sabbatical from work. So you might be, this year we had some members of parliament from Pakistan, or we had judges from Japan, and which makes for, really diverse class. So you have some people who've just finished their undergrad degree, and then you have other people who are quite far along in their career, I would say, who have a different perspective. And we bring everyone together in the room and we're able to have genuine, discussions. And that was really good. And then students who go on afterwards, some go on to PhD, some go on to work in NGOs, others go on to do other master's programs. Others go to work in the criminal justice system of their own home countries or here in the UK. So that is anything from prisons to working with or as judges. And others go on to be journalists or writers. I think having an LLM criminal justice is very useful for anyone who wants to understand what's going on in the world. So those kind of consultancy and journalist jobs do well uh, uh, from the kind of wide scope of topics which we talk about and the depth in which we go into them.
Totally. There's a question which someone might have just missed the beginning of the presentation. Someone's asked about where the LLM program will be conducted, kind of in which buildings.
Yeah.
So might you want to just repeat that for us, Tom?
Yeah, so the main focus of the LLM program is in Lincoln's Inn Fields. So that is the CCLS building in Lincoln's Inn Fields in central London. But we also have a lot of classes at the Mile End campus, and they could be in any of the buildings on the Mile End campus. The teaching is not centralized, so we use all the buildings. But most of them are in the law school or the graduate center, but they could be in any of the buildings. So depending on which subjects you pick, will dictate which buildings you're being taught in and which campus you're being taught in. But it's spread across both campuses, CCLS and Mile End, which are connected by the central line, which is fast and simple to use.
Perfect. So we've got a question. Someone said they're aiming to qualify as a barrister. So would you recommend this course?
Yeah, I think I would. I think, if you're going into the criminal justice system as a barrister, you'll have to do defense and prosecution usually. And if you're doing it in a domestic setting only, you should pick your subjects basically wisely as to which domestic setting you're going in, and think about which field you'd like to do. But I think it would be very useful for a barrister to have an LLM in criminal justice if they're going to be a criminal justice barrister. And then you have to think about which area you want to do it in. So if it's international criminal law or human rights you'd like to do, then you need to focus your subject choice towards those topics. But I think it would be hugely beneficial. I don't know if it helps for qualifying as such, but the knowledge that you gain will be very useful for practice as a barrister.
Perfect, thank you. And I think it's probably worth, I can explain this, just how module selection will work. So when you join us in September, there is a induction period where you get the chance to choose your modules for the year ahead. So I'll pop the link in the chat so you can have a look if you're not aware already of the module lists that we have. So you'll be able to see criminal justice on there and all the modules available. I was just having a look through them, Tom. There's loads and lots of variety as well. So during your induction period, you'll have a chance to explore the modules a bit further and make your choices. But we would recommend usually just to have a look at them before you start, just to give you a bit of an idea, just so that it's not too overwhelming when you start in September. So I've popped the link in the chat, so feel free to have a look at the modules available. particularly for your program. And as the programs work, you will get flexibility if you would like to choose outside of your specialism as well. So depending on whether you've got to stay.
What scope do students have to change their specialism if they start looking at modules and decide, say, that human rights program is more relevant to their career goals?
It would have to be done very early.
Mhm.
So very early in the year would you have to be able to change your specialism as such, because that involves, obviously quite a changing process in terms of systems that we have. But the beauty of the LLM at Queen Mary is that you can, if there are other areas that you're interested in, you do have that flexibility in your LLM credits that you can choose outside your specialism. So only 120 would need to be from criminal justice or human rights law to get a criminal justice or a human rights law LLM. And then the rest you could choose from elsewhere. So, and there's crossover on different programs as
Yeah,
well.
no, absolutely. There's so much crossover. You can design it yourself,
Um,
very much. I just see another question about going for the Crown Prosecution Service.
mm,
So yeah, I think it's going to be very useful, um, because if you just look at the modules that we do, a lot of them will be dealing with specific crimes that the Crown Prosecution Service deals with. And so if you do those modules with those experts, then you will be you will have the knowledge needed to be really useful to a Crown prosecution team. Whether that's something like cybercrime or war crimes, having the LLM specialism puts you above anyone else, I suppose, that wouldn't have it in the team, to be able to say, well, I understand the background, I understand the documents, the laws that inform these prosecutions, and therefore I'm become a more valuable member of that team. So I think if you want to do any kind of specialisms in Crown Prosecution Service, I think it's always useful to have an LLM with those specialisms and as part of it.
brilliant. Thank you, Tom. And something that people are always interested in is, I know you touched on a few members of the teaching team, but how many people generally teach on the criminal justice program? Do you know?
No, I don't.
A lot of you.
Yeah, no, there must be. There must be. That's a great question. I really don't know. There must be 100, 120 or something. Lecturers, senior lecturers, professors, and TAs teaching on it. So lots.
And students would obviously have contact with you as the program director, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we do. We have meetings. We have meetings. We have events, and we have some formal kind of meetings that we would have to discuss things like dissertations, things
Mm.
like module choice. You get presentations from lots of the lecturers on different modules before you make your choices in the first few weeks. And as the program leader, then yeah, you have contact with me whenever needed, um, to discuss getting through the program, but also for some practical things like dissertation writing. And then if you take my classes, you have to listen to me for 3 hours a week, usually,
Lovely.
or we
Um,
discuss things in general.
and it always comes up, so I'm going to ask you before someone asks it. Dissertation supervision, how does that work?
Yeah, so you have, I can't remember how many words the dissertation is off the top of my head, but I think it's a large project, 10,000, 12,000 words usually. Um, and so there's a dissertation writing kind of meeting that we have at the beginning to discuss topic ideas. And then you have 3 individual meetings with your supervisor. So you were assigned a supervisor for the dissertation, someone that the topic under research is within their area of expertise. If not a core area, it's within the area of their understanding and expertise. And you have 3 meetings with them. Usually the first one is to work out a plan of how to go forward. The second one to check how you're doing, and the third one then is to make sure that everything is all ready for the filing of the dissertation towards the end. Beyond those meetings, there are always opportunities to, bump into staff or email people if there anything urgent comes up. But the meetings are usually set up so that you know exactly what you need to do, when, and what the deadlines will be. Because it's actually, it sounds like a lot of words, but actually one of the problems is it's not enough words. So a lot of the work in a dissertation is being super concise while being accurate and informative at the same time. So that involves discussions with your supervisor to understand how to pull that together.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, someone's asked, could you give some further insight into the different teaching formats of the LLM program? Is it mainly lectures, seminar, tutoring sessions? How many students typically be attending classes? So quite a few questions there. Let's start with the first one.
No, good questions. Good questions. So there's no one answer I can give to the question. So the teaching style is going to depend on the teacher themselves. So you have some will have lectures where you listen to a prepared lecture, and then you have a chance to discuss it, usually at the end of such a session. Other lecturers try to do full discussion all the way through, or break it up with reading sessions or group work or videos. And so because there's so many teachers and so many different styles of teaching, and the styles of teaching are not just based on the teacher's personality, it's based on the subject matter. All these modules are designed using pedagogical theory to work out exactly how to teach them in a way that's going to be useful for the students. So there's a range of ways they're done. Another way of thinking about it is the lecture size. So a lot of the modules, there will be between 10, 15 people in the class. So that really helps with being discussion classes. If the module has more than 30 students, I think is the current number, I understand that then you have extra tutorial sessions on top of that, which are broken down into half the class. So you can have two styles of the same subject in the same week. You can have one that's a lecture, and then the next day you might have a seminar where you sit around and discuss issues, or you do readings together, or you design presentations or something like that. So it's really difficult to say. You should try and read, if you're looking at particular modules, there should be some information in the module descriptions about how it's taught, and what the assessment is. But there's a wide range, and it ranges from lectures, as I say, at the moment. So I've just finished teaching state crime, and that was 5 weeks of 3-hour lectures. So you had 3 hours of a lecture on every Monday for 5 weeks. And that was me lecturing for an hour, then having a discussion. Then we might watch a video for half an hour or so. Then we would discuss a bit more. Then I would lecture towards the end. So it's like completely broken up. And because there were 60 students, we also had seminars. So we had seminars where you would come along, and either I would give you pre-reading or actually give you the reading in the room on the day, and we would quickly go read through it as quickly as we can. And then as a group, we would bring in what we understood from the reading, and what we think the message is, or what we're trying to take from it, and debate the issues. So yeah, typically between 12, 15 for most modules, but some of them are more oversubscribed, and you can have up to 40, 50 students in the room. And when that's the case, we also have seminars. So there's always room for, whether the class is small or you've been broken up to a seminar for a big class, there's always room to discuss the issues going on, because that's how we learn, basically.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. That's actually really helpful for me as well to hear it from you, because I always think sometimes when people hear 3-hour lectures, it sounds quite intimidating.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
it does. But actually, by the end of the 3 hours, you're just getting into it. You've got the lecture in the first hour is giving you all the base material that you need to actually engage with the issue. And so by the time we get to the end of the 3 hours, it doesn't feel like we've been sitting there for that long. It feels like we're only getting going really, and we often have to pick up the conversation again the next day in a seminar or something.
Totally. That's really helpful. And for the question about part-time, so how part-time essentially works, because you're spreading the LLM across 2 years, is you're essentially going to choose half the modules in each semester compared to a full-time student. So you'll still be doing the 3-hour lectures alongside the other full-time students that are doing the same module as you, but you'll have less hours a week. So say you've got a full-time student will have 8 to 10 hours of contact time a week, you would have half of that. And in terms of provisions in place to watch lectures remotely or taking place in person, face-to-face is the preference for us at Queen Mary. We find that to be a lot more engaging and a nicer experience for the students as well, wouldn't you say, Tom?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because we through COVID we had to do things that were not face to face, so we got to see both sides of the argument about this. I understand that people can miss lectures and things for other reasons that are outside their control, and sometimes maybe a recording might be useful in those circumstances. But a lot of the courses, a lot of the lectures are really heavily discussion based. And so you have to be in the room and you have to be engaged with the conversation and to be able to interact in order to get the most out of it. So that's the preference in the primary. And also to note that some lectures cannot be recorded due to the sensitive nature of the topics that are discussed, or due to protecting victim testimony or things like that, and sometimes to protect discussion in the class because of the issues. For example, if we're talking about certain states in the world might be upset about some of the things we teach and we talk about because it goes against what that state's view of the world, then we can't record those and have them available because it just opens us up to having problems on sensitive issues. But that's only a very small number. I think we try to record where possible, but absolutely, I think in person is the way to go.
Yeah, agreed. We do have a system called Q Review, which is the recording system. So where there is recordings available, that they're available to you. But generally, we want students to come in and engage. So generally, they're not made immediately available to students on Q Review. And it might be if you've got a reason why you need to be elsewhere, some sort of extenuating circumstances, then they'll be made available to you. So we strongly, strongly encourage you to be in person with us.
And another reason to be in person is part of an LLM for a lot of people is to work out what they're going to do next. You're exposed to options when you do an LLM. You're exposed to people working in the field and industry. You're exposed to what's out there, things that you mightn't even know exist, jobs that you didn't even know existed. But also to create a network to bring with you afterwards. You have all these students, all these that people who are going to become experts in their field, or they're going to move on to do great things just as you are yourself. You will create this network so that when you are asked down the line, do you know any good media lawyers? You can say, oh yeah, I did an LLM with X and here's their email address. And so I know for my own LLM, I'm still in contact with a lot of the students who have moved on to do great things. And that network doesn't happen online as easily as it does when you're like waiting outside a classroom for a class to start, or you're having discussions in class, or you go off and have lunch together. That's how the networks are formed, and that's a huge value of an LLM. But also to tap into that peer-to-peer learning system, setting up WhatsApp groups with people in the same class. You can ask quick questions that other people have already spent the hour finding the answer for you, and usually to do with when is the deadline for this essay or something.
Perfect. And that leads nicely into actually just mentioning the alumni network that you become a part of kind of automatically when you join us. So you have the network of your peers that you study with, but also the huge network of alumni that study law at Queen Mary. So there's always events happening where wherever you are in the world, that people meet up and that you can connect even wider with the even larger network that's available to you, which students always say about how helpful that is.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for people to keep in mind. You want to get the LLM, you want to get a good result, you want to get your degree, um, but there are other things going on in the university environment. There's the networking, there's the alumni, there's enjoying London, there's understanding the culture of legal London. All these things come together, and they're not peripheral as such. They're core to the LLM experience. So it's not just the degree, the piece of paper you get at the end of the day. It's immersing yourself in this world as well.
And all the events you can take part in as well. There's so much that goes on.
Yeah, that's a good question. Specific area of London where students tend to reside? I don't think so. I think if you're an undergrad or something, you're out in Mile End and you might want to live near campus. But otherwise, it's so well connected London that there's no specific area. There are University of London accommodations and things that you can look at, and I'm sure the accommodation office can point you towards that.
Yeah, we do have postgraduate accommodation that you can apply to, which is by the Mile campus, so towards that area. But I speak to students and they're all over the place.
Yeah, all over the place. And what does student life and work in a big city, what's it like in London? Well, I don't know how to answer that. Just that London is a very large, very populous, extremely diverse and lively city. And it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. There's something for everyone. And I think people really enjoy it. I'm teaching summer school starting soon, and I know people come for 3 weeks, 4 weeks to London, and they have an absolute ball, especially in the summer. But there's just so much going on in London. It's what you make of it. You know, there are hundreds of museums, hundreds of events, hundreds of bars and thousands of bars and restaurants, and lots of open air spaces, canal systems, parks, and you can find anything here. So it's kind of what you make of it. It can be very expensive in London, but it can also be very cheap because it's so diverse, because there's so much going on. You can navigate it whatever way you want, I would say. But I haven't been a student here for a long time, so not the best place to answer. I just know that it's a very vibrant city.
I think that's a really nice answer anyway. Is there a uniform tuition waiver given to international students intend to pursue graduate programs at QMUL? I don't believe so. We have scholarship opportunities, which I think is worth mentioning. A lot of them that are program specific, and I know there is one for this program. The deadlines usually finish in May time, where scholarships come up for renewal. And we have deadlines there for there to be reviewed, sorry. However, it's worth having a look at the scholarships database that we have on the Queen Mary website, and then you can see if there's anything there that's appropriate for you. And that includes stuff specific for law or specific for country that you might be from as well. So it's always worth having a look there.
Yeah, and where would you find information about the specific criminal justice LLM scholarship?
I can pop it in the chat. It's
Yeah,
the Kalisha.
do that will be of interest.
I was looking at it earlier today in preparation. Now the link's not coming up. Here we go. Oh. Pop that in the chat. So if you're not due to come this year or you're looking for the future, it's something that's worth having a look at. Okay.
Oh, so we've missed the deadline on that one, is it?
Yeah, for this
Oh,
year.
sorry. Yeah, I
If you're
understand.
looking for the future, it's worth having a look at.
Okay.
They usually close in May, all the specific ones, unfortunately.
Yeah, that one's external, so we don't have control over that one.
Starting in September. So sorry, Jacinta. Have a look at the scholarships database in general anyway. Okay. Right. Have we got oh, we've got one more. Coming from a civil law background, it's advised to acquire some knowledge about common law systems before starting the LLM. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it is depending on your subjects that you pick. You know, a lot of the subjects might be international or criminological, so they don't rely so much on the jurisdiction. Um, but I think it is useful. I think part of the reason of coming to London is to immerse yourself in a common law legal system. And we've seen a trend generally for international law and for that it takes on a lot of the common law principles for better or worse. That's probably, because America's so all powerful or whatever. But I think it's useful to give yourself some background in it. There's a great book by Professor Mallison, who's Queen Mary, called Introduction to the English Legal System, which just goes through all the differences and pulls it all together. So I don't think you need to do, a massive course or anything on it. I think doing some reading in the library when you get here, or having a look at Kate Madison's book before you get here, just to understand the differences between common law and civil law. And at the end of the day, these systems interact with each other quite well. The differences are fundamental and big, but they're not difficult to understand as such. And I think you can get yourself up to speed quite quickly. But that is something I would do coming from a civil jurisdiction, is to get a base knowledge of the common law system. And Kate Madison's book's really good for that. And interestingly, Scotland is a hybrid system. It's a bit of civil and a bit of common law. So that's quite an interesting approach.
Perfect. Okay, last question. When is the application deadline? So I can answer that. The deadline is actually not until September. So you could technically apply in September and start in September. However, particularly if you're an international student, we would not recommend leaving it that late, because if you've got to go through visa processes, it's just you're never going to be able to start in time. So that is the official deadline. However, if you, particularly for an international student, we'd recommend that you apply as early as possible. So if you're thinking of starting in September, the earlier you can apply, the better. Because at this time of year, particularly, the admissions team get quite busy, which means the processing time can get a little bit longer. So if you know you want to apply and you want to come this September, we'd advise you kind of get prepped of it as soon as you can. And particularly for an international student, beginning of August, I'd say is probably the latest I'd leave it, to be able to get your application in, just to ensure that you've got processing in place for visas or anything you might need to move to the UK. Okay, I think we've done quite well there, Tom, on getting through those questions.
Good.
As we're here, there's nothing else that's come through, so I think I'll close this off here. Tom, thank you so much for your time and the presentation today. It's always nice to have different academics available to talk about different programs. So thank you so much. Everyone here, thank you for joining us. As I said in the beginning, the session is recorded, so I will send this out as well afterwards with the slides. So please keep an eye if you want to catch up on anything. You'll also see Tom's email and the PG Law Inquiries inbox, which comes through myself and colleagues. So if you have any questions at all that you think of after this, please do let us know, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But going to sign off here now and wish you a lovely rest of your day.
Great. Thank you. Lovely speaking with you all.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye bye.